Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and in this episode we're going to finish seam welding the underside of the Alfarrari. Alright guys, for those of you who haven't been following, this is the Alfarrari. It's my 1973 Alfa Romeo 2000 GTV, which I have converted to have a Ferrari 360 V8 engine into it. And we are on the final legs now. If you missed what we're up to, I'll put a link up above so you can catch up. And think about subscribing, it does help us out. Now, in the last week, I was going through and finishing off making my tunnel in the middle here solid, which I'd patched together previously, and I redid the captive nuts on my tunnel window. That's all done now, so now I can actually go around and do the final bit of seam welding. So basically everywhere where the panels join, like I did on the inside, I'm going to go around and stitch this together. So it is sometimes called stitch welding, but it is seam welding. Seam welding does not necessarily mean you're welding the entire chassis together. It is actually just doing sort of inch-long welds, leave an inch, weld an inch, all the way around. Just it ties it all together, but also gives it, it does give the chassis a little bit of movement, just the panels a bit of movement, so they don't just crack on the joins. It also, if a weld does crack, it will only crack along that one weld, and there'll be a break, so it won't necessarily follow all the way along, whereas if a continuous weld, if you started to crack, it potentially would go the whole way. That's what I'm doing now, so now it's going to be a whole lot of time lapse of me doing a lot of welding. All right, these are the little bits that get complicated. So this is actually, the car's upside down. This is the back of the wheel arch, where this is the bottom corner of the car here, and there's a little gap. This is the inner wheel arch, and obviously a lot of mud and slush and stuff is going to get flicked in here, and there's a little hole. So I've got myself just a piece of sheet metal, and I'm going to start cutting and shaping and making a patch so I can actually fill in and seal up this corner so that it's not going to sort of catch all the grot and grime. These sort of bits are really fiddly and time consuming, but will make a difference in the end and hopefully stop it rusting out. All right, that was pretty laborious. It was basically a whole day just going through and seam welding the entire underside, filling in all of the little gaps, finishing off the welding inside the wheel arches and everything. I didn't film a lot of it because it's quite repetitive and quite boring, but I now have the underside done. All of the seam welding has gone all the way around. As you can sort of probably see from there, there's seam welding everywhere. We have a nice solid structure. So we are really on the final stretch now. So there's a couple more little things that I want to tackle on the bodywork side before we go down the paint rabbit hole. So one of the last things I want to do on this car before it is finally ready for paint is I need to fill up these little holes here. So I'm still going to be using these lights here. I looked at different options and I looked at a bunch of other cars, and I actually like the rectangular lights better than replacing them with a little round light here or something like that. They just seem to look better. The other thing is that I won't be driving with bumpers. I may have to have them for some things, so I will still have the facility here to be able to mount bumpers up, but it may be a temporary thing. So I want to get rid of these bulges. I don't want these sort of lumps here because that doesn't really suit the aesthetic. I think it looks better when it's nice and smooth. So that means I need to cut these out. I need to cut that out there. I also need to fill this hole. So that is the next thing I'm going to do is start smoothing this corner off. So let's start marking it out and cutting out the bit, and I'll show you what I need to do from there on. All right, so I've cut out my patch, and I've got a piece here of just a patch sheet, but a flat sheet is not going to do the job. It's not going to look right. It's not going to be right. It needs to have a bit of a crown to it, and you're not going to get that just by bending it one way or the other. I need to bend both ways. Some of you saw me use the sandbags in a previous episode, and this is a good way to be able to sort of get some 3D shapes in this. What I'm going to try this time is something else that I've seen that I haven't actually tried yet, and that is going back to a wooden stump. So I went out to my firewood supplier that this has been sitting out for a while. It's a nice solid stump that I've got here, and this is obviously flat on the top, and what I want to do is I want to get the grinder out now and try and give myself a little bit of a well into it, and this should be something that I can keep and try and use as something to form some complex curves. So you saw me there. I went in with the grinding wheel or the flat discs, and I've carved myself out a nice little well into the top of this stump. And this I hope to keep for quite some time and just use it purely for metal shaping. So I've got my my sheet here, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through with this sort of nylon hammer and start denting it in the middle. And basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stretch the center, but any folds that I get, once I stretch the center, the edges you'll see will start folding up. Those I want to try and hammer out flat, and that will actually shrink the edges and stretch the center to get that complex curve shape. Now I don't need a huge amount of curve in this, so we'll just take it easy to start with and just gradually work on this, hold it up to the car and just go backwards and forwards and see if I can actually get a bit of a curve out of this. Haven't tried it before, but I'm looking forward to giving it a go. All right, well that's come out really good. So what I did is I started with the stump and the nylon hammer and just worked away at that and sort of got it, but it was obviously full of dents. And I have to actually build myself a proper stand to stand some dollies in so that I can actually hold them. But just putting the dolly in the vise with a nice curve on it. And what you might have seen me, I started out just using a hammer, and actually I didn't use this one, I used the flat hammer because obviously different curved hammers for different jobs, and I wanted something flatter because obviously I'm trying to match the curve that I've got underneath, and that wasn't that was going to be very, 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 very slow. So what I actually got myself a little while ago was this. So this is just a basic air chisel. But I got myself some hammer bits for it. So these hammer bits, I have to turn the pressure right down, but it works fantastically. And I managed to get this so much smoother. You can sort of see there's very light rippling in it, but it's pretty good overall. And I've got myself quite a nice compound curve in it now that I can now offer up to the front of the car, and I can just sort of go backwards and forwards. I'm going to start trimming it out and adjusting the shape and the curve to get it just right to fit the front of the car and make my patch piece out of. All right, so with a bit of fettling and trimming, I've got a nice patch piece that's going to sit on here quite nicely. It's got a very nice curve. I'm going to use the tack and cut method to get this to fit. So basically what it means is I'm going to go around with the MIG and tack it on in a bunch of places, and then trim it out one little bit at a time, and you'll see as I go. So I'm not sure if you've sort of seen how I've been putting this in, but basically what I've been doing is I tacked it over the top initially, and then I've been going around and I've been cutting through both the top and the bottom at about a 45-degree angle. So when the panels overlap, they sort of come back down and sit nice and level with each other and square. So you get a nice tight fit. So when I go through and finally weld it up, I'll be TIG welding it, and I'll have a nice tight gap. So basically I'm sort of tacking, cut, tack, cut through the previous tack, and then cut, tack all the way around to get a nice, flush, neat panel, and it should give a very nice even patch. All right, well that is starting to look nice and smooth and doing the job that I wanted it to do. So basically what we've done here is I went through, welded it up, obviously tigged it around, and then it's a matter of getting it flat and smooth. And that's just a lot of time with the hammer and dolly. And then what I've been doing is going over it with the body file, which when you run this over it, what it essentially does is it gives you scratches and shows you where the high and the low spots are. And then you can go back again with the hammer and dolly. It's tedious, hammer and dolly, bit of body file, and then I've run over the whole lot with the DA sander just to sort of smooth it out. Still needs a little bit more, but I'm definitely out of time this week, so I think that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hi guys, in 1965, the Dino 166P was created by Ferrari to compete in the up to 2000cc endurance races. The bodywork was inspired by the previous P series, but was smaller and with an enclosed roof. Designed and built by Piero Drogo's Carrozzeria Sports Cars in Modena, this was the first Ferrari prototype to wear the rectangular Dino badge on its bonnet. That's hood for some of you. It was powered by a 1.6 litre twin-spark V6, which was mid-mounted behind the driver's seat, making 175 horsepower. The following year, Ferrari stepped it up with the 206S, which was a 2-litre V6, making 200 horsepower to maximise the rules of the category. Ferrari intended to build 50 examples to meet the homologation rules for Group 4, but they only managed to build 18 examples instead, so they were forced to compete in the under 2-litre prototype category. Despite this handicap, the 206S went on to claim many class wins, but was smaller with an enclosed body.
Roof.
Damn it. Designed and built by Piero Drogo Carrozzeria's... This is hard to say. Piero, in my mind it sounds so good. Designed and built by Piero behind the driver's seat. I mean, it's so disturbing when you do that.
Sorry, this is Mozzie.
Ferrari intended to build 50 examples to meet the Group 4... No.